on the stage, Mr. Ali Nanji. Yeah. Ali is the Regional Director for Partner Business at Backbase for the region of Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Ali is an expert into FinTech, Metaverse, enthusiast on blockchain. Outside work, Ali prefers to enjoy the water sports, and he does a lot of paddling. Ali is also a co-founder for a foundation which is named as Shukran Workers, which is doing for a good cause. We're helping the construction workers in the region. Thanks, Ali, to be here. I would like to invite my second panelist, Ashish Gupta. Ashish is the head of digital banking and merchant acquiring business at Bank Dhofar. For the last 2 decades, Ashish has transformed digital products, profit centers, and a lot of corporate business relationships. Outside work, Ashish has won several championships into badminton and table tennis. I would like to invite my third panelist, Fahad Maawali. Fahad is the head of transaction banking at ahlibank Oman. A decade back when there was no corporate banking platform available, so Fahad took the initiative to build an in-house corporate banking platform with the help of his in-house team. And he ran it for almost 10 years successfully. Again, a lot of lessons for the FinTech in the room. He's also a BizPro award winner, where Fahad was recognized as a star performer in the business leadership. Good to have you, Fahad, on the stage. I would like to invite my next panelist, Mohammed Jabri. So Mohammed is heading the Global Transaction Banking Division at National Bank of Oman. For the past few weeks, you must have seen the news. He's into news for the last couple of weeks. For his interview published in Muscat Daily on sustaining innovation in corporate banking. And outside work, again, we have a team of sportsperson on the stage. He also loves to go for an open water drive along with his friends during free time. I would like to invite my last panelist, Sadiq Lawati. Sadiq is the head of channels and digitalization at Bank Nizwa. Having spent more than 2 decades in the region working for various banks in Oman, Sadiq has a special interest towards Islamic finance. And again, interesting fact, Sadiq is into hiking and snorkeling. So we have a lot of people who love sea sports onto the stage. So good to have you on board. So the next summit we'll do it on work-life balance, and we'll invite you. So Sadiq, the people who are sitting on the extreme end will have the tough questions, so you need to be ready for that. So I'll start with Mohammed, and our topic is on fostering FinTech innovation in the digital ecosystem. So we'll focus on the FinTech, a lot of collaboration, what FinTech needs to do and has been doing with the banks in Oman. So Mohammed, I'll take a liberty to put a first question to you. It's on what are the key characteristics you see and the strengths in Oman's current FinTech ecosystem, and also looking at it from an outside-in perspective, how do you compare the Oman's current FinTech ecosystem with respect to the other regional ecosystems? Yeah, over to you.
First of all, I would like to thank Cedar for the invitation, and thanks the audience for coming in. Thanks a lot. To answer your question, I think I'll be repetitive because Chetan and the previous panel really covered FinTechs very heavily. But just to add more, I'll focus on Oman first. If we see that Oman, since 2021, started really moving faster on adopting FinTechs. And I'll say bathing the path and the way for them to incorporate and to work smoothly in Oman. So the regulation, has been mentioned, open AI or open banking, PSP licensing, incubation through Omantel or through others, everything is in place. What I think is missing in Oman today is the raise funding or funding, which is we don't see much. Since 2021 till 2023 August, if I'm not mistaken, there was around $2 billion raised on the Middle East, and especially GCC. 40% of that was in the UAE. So we are missing that. That's a key attractive for FinTechs to come in. Again, Oman is moving faster and moving in the right direction by emphasizing and encouraging Omani FinTechs as well. We don't see international FinTechs like we see in DIFC or ADGM, but we are getting there. There is a huge focus from Central Bank. They just created their innovation department. It was there as a task force, but now it's a setup that you can look at. We have IDCA, that is an incubator and accelerator that we look at. It used to be OTF, Oman Technology Fund. So we have all the pillars. We have the infrastructure. I'll say most of the guidelines are there. Sandboxing are there. So all what we need is to market ourselves right, to be attractive. Now, comparing to our regional or neighboring countries, I think the IFC and ADGM are way ahead of us. They created a good platforms. They have the accelerators, they have the launchpad, they have the funding available within them. But we can catch up by attracting different segments, different nature of businesses. Saudi is picking up. We don't see Qatar that much. They are maybe on the same level like us today. Bahrain, they are there. Kuwait, similarity between us and them. But in Oman, I think we need to open up a bit. The infrastructure is there. And what we need to focus on is, do we want to foster Omani companies only and grow Omani companies? Because that's a national kind of an agenda to create jobs. But that will not help to create the trend or to attract the new technologies. It's always going to be within ourselves and what is needed on the local market. I think what we need to do is to link between global trends and the local markets and try to improve what's happening on the local market by attracting these global trends to go back home. And we are National Bank of Oman. We are focusing on attracting international trends. We are looking around throughout technology funds, through FinTech funds, and even we have collaboration with certain innovation hubs and accelerators. We are not, I'll say, looking the other way. No, we are focused to encourage Omani companies and create a relation between Omani companies and the international market. I hope that covers your question.
So taking that thought, Mohammed, if you want to elaborate more on the pillars, I believe National Bank of Oman has 9 pillars. And one of the pillars you focus is on the FinTech side. So so how is that strategy been going with respect to the setting of those pillars and then taking pillar by pillar and taking it to execution? So if you want to add more details around that.
We started our strategy in 2021. We have 9 pillars. I will not go through all, but there is a certain characteristic of these pillars, and there is a focus on partnership. The partnership pillar is all about how you can extend your services and your products through partners to reach to new segments, to reach to new geography, or to give a different product that is not available to your client by doing partnership. And it's not only digital partnership, but I think the main driver that we are doing at the moment is trying to partner with FinTechs. We are, as I said, in National Bank of Oman, focus on creating these partnership with FinTechs. It's not only for the sake of profitability, I'll say, which is, it's weird coming from a banker, but we want to see FinTechs growing. Again, this is weird coming from a banker, but we see that FinTechs are extension of the banking services that we have. If you look at what Shaitan said, cost to income ratios in Oman are a bit high on the banks, and I think this is one way to bring it down.
A lot of differentiators for the Oman market in terms of Omanization and on the funds availability or funds flow into this market. Taking that thought forward, Ashish, since you have been dealing on the digital side and you manage a lot of FinTechs, most of the FinTechs we see in the region and globally is around digital. And since you have been interacting with these FinTechs on day-to-day basis with respect to your area on the digital side, so how do you see the digital ecosystem has influenced the financial sector, and especially the role the FinTech has been playing in transforming the financial sector with respect to the digital ecosystem? If you want to take that.
So I'll divide the question into two parts. First, the digital transformation in the banking sector, and then the second part, the role of FinTech. So let me ask the audience a question here. In the last 1 week, among all of you, at the risk of asking that question, knowing that a lot of you are bankers, how many of you have visited a bank branch for a banking service? Anyone? In the last 1 month? Kashif, you raise your hand. Anyone else? Okay, I think that answers, and we can pat our back. You know, for a lot of our banking services, starting from a simple service of opening a bank account, which happens digitally. Now with Mala integration, it will happen even much more smoother with a better experience. Basic services like fund transfers locally, internationally, instant remittances, international top-ups. Getting into peripheral services like wealth management, insurance. A lot of these functions in the services, features to our customers have been digitized, okay? But is that the definition of digital? If you look at the other industries across the world, look at transportation, the food sector, the digital disruption has not happened as a technology service. It has broken down or changed the complete business model. Uber does not own taxis and Tarabat does not make food, right? So that Uberization of banking, I think it is the next big thing that I think all of us in our room, that's a common theme, we all want it to happen, right? So that Uberization is something that I think everyone in the room is working towards. Now coming back to this concept of Uberization, if you look at in India, let me take an example, how the FinTechs have evolved with the banking system. If you know, most of the basic services like fund transfers and bill payments do not happen from the banking apps anymore. The apps like PhonePe and Google Pay, they actually store your cards and bank accounts and they enable all the services on behalf of the banks. But is that the banks are not making money or banks are not able to give services? Banks are obviously getting the pie share in the entire ecosystem. Now, similarly, BNPL is the next major example that you can talk about. All of, I think 50% audience in this room are having an Apple phone, and Apple provides the BNPL service in collaboration with Goldman Sachs, right? So that is again a Uberization of banking services. So that is the next big thing that is happening right now. Now coming back to your second component of coming back to Oman, how is that FinTech ecosystem evolving here? So there are a lot of things that is getting implemented in Oman. Direct debit is something we haven't yet discussed because I wanted to bring out something new since the last panel. So that is something that is going to be the big game changer. A lot of, while we pat our back, you know, 50% if you look at our bank's transactions are happening on digital, but 50% of those transactions are happening in cash. And that is a big problem that we as bankers need to solve why still 50% of the transactions are happening in cash. Now, with mandates like direct debit getting implemented, and obviously tokenization, a lot of these transactions will happen digitally. And now, with open banking standards coming into play, that is where, and also the BNPL companies, FinTechs collaborating in Oman along with banks, and they are also using, the central bank is helping a lot with the CBO sandbox regulations that have come into play. That is where the next level of changes will happen in the bank. In one sector which is completely not moved along with the payments is the corporate and the transaction banking. And that's what we heard in the first part of the panel. That's where a lot of innovations worldwide is happening, and big leap is going to change over there. So collections module, liquidity management, trade finance, blockchain enablement, and instant financing for a lot of corporates is where I would see a lot of collaborations taking place. Thank you.
You should have asked me the question as well. Last 5 years, I have not visited branch even a single time for my any transactions into banking. And direct debit, I think we should have it in the next time. We'll have it in the slides, so point taken. Huh? So with that, I think a lot of interesting stuff, Ashish, you pointed out, and I think it's more of how the region is transforming onto the, especially adopting the FinTech and various elements onto the FinTech. With this, Alif, I have to take your thought. Now, although the ecosystem exists, everyone is doing pretty much the same thing. And on the digital, most important things comes out to be the customer experience. Okay. So now in terms of customer experience, digital onboarding, like one example. Although everyone is doing pretty much everything, but when it comes to looking at from your perspective as a FinTech provider, okay, what do you see the bank must be doing to make sure the journey for a customer is seamless, effortless? And we are not talking about, for example, giving them or meeting their expectations. We are talking about beyond expectations now to have a delightful customer experience. So what do you suggest as a FinTech provider the bank must be doing so that we give our customers a delightful customer experience?
So thank you for having me here. If you look at the fundamental functionality of a bank from historic times till today, it boils down to one word, which is trust. I put my money in a bank because I trust the bank. That's how it was back in the medieval times, and that's how it is today. But what defines trust? And the element of that trust is now changing as times go on. It's on ease of engagement, responsiveness, transparency, and effectiveness. So taking the cue from Ashish, I also wanted to ask the audience a question, which was, in the last 6 months, how many of you have gotten an email, phone call, or text message from a bank, your bank or any other bank, with some sort of offer, be it a credit card, be it a loan? How many of you have gotten this in the last 6 months? And out of the ones that got this, when you got this message, how many of you thought, hey, my bank really knows me? Right. So I think we've come to the common denominator here. And I think that is the fundamental differentiator when it comes to customer experience. Because what we've done as an industry is we've realized, all right, we have a siloed spaghetti architecture. We have legacy. We have all of this new technology that's come into play. We now have to use it. So where do we put our attention? We put our attention on the back. Fix the back end. Fix the middle layer. And that's important. Don't get me wrong. That is very important. But as Rudy mentioned, right, earlier in the previous panel, go ahead with the end in mind. And what's the end? The end is the customer. It's the customer's seamless flow of experience. And statistics prove that, right? If you look, there was a study done by McKinsey for the GCC region where they said a single negative, significant negative customer experience for the millennial population, which today is, I would argue, the most affluent, quote unquote, up and coming population, has a 61% chance that this will be a relationship terminating kind of event. Effectively, if it comes around what I would label as the three most disproportionate journeys, which are onboarding, the ability to do deposits, withdrawals, etc., and problem resolution. If you see a big disparity in these three sort of quote-unquote journeys, most millennials will switch, and the cost to switch is not that high, not anymore. The other element is when you look at banks or institutions that have gotten this right, they see a 30% increase in sale, a 28% reduction in cost to serve. They see a greater number of customer retention, but interestingly enough, they also see a high amount of employee retention as well. And so, to answer your question on what takes this to the next elevated form of customer experience, you really have to look at what we like to label as journey-led progressive modernization. You take a look at your top journeys. And when you take a look at your top journeys, you effectively have one of two approaches. You can de-frictionalize the journey. You can say, okay, how can I make this more smoother? Onboarding in 5 clicks, onboarding in 10 clicks, whatever it may be, right? Or you can reimagine the journey and say, listen, if I was to do this again from scratch, would I do it this way? And what we've seen as Backbase is 9 times out of 10, the answer to that is no. You would not do it this way. And that is because of, as Ashish was mentioning, all of the new models that have come across from other industries, such as retail, transport, supply chain, so on and so forth, that's showing us that there is a new way to do things. But when it comes to an elevated customer experience, I think it's important to look at it from not just a journey perspective, but also from a total experience perspective, which is how am I looking at the customer? How am I looking at my employee and what my employee is doing from the form of the customer? What am I doing in terms of UI and UX, which statistically has shown, an 80% retention rate comes just from the fact that your app looks better and has fewer clicks, right? The backend may exactly be the same, but UI, UX is that important because the generational needs of today's environment are very much dependent upon ease of engagement, right? And that comes predominantly from a UI, UX point. And those three components together form the total experience, right? End to end, back to front, front to back, right? The way to achieve this in practical terms, an average bank, an average regional bank has approximately 1,500 customer journeys. Now you cannot go ahead and reimagine 1,500 customer journeys because then that would literally be what you do all the time, right? That's not possible. But what you can do, practically speaking, is take a look at the subset of those journeys that are giving you the most return on investment and see how you can de-friction or reimagine them and work from a front to back approach. Right? And once that element comes into play, you start seeing a significant change. One of the banks listed in the opening, which was HDFC. And the reason why HDFC is very, very successful and is also a Backbase customer is, again, because they literally took that approach. And they reimagined their core journeys to be able to provide a delightful customer experience. So I think as a takeaway, what I would recommend when you look at the elevated customer experience component of things is really look at what your customer is focusing on and focus on that.
Thanks, Ali. I think certain takeaways, especially on the number of journeys, 1,500, what you gave as a benchmark, and then I think a lot of banks in the room are doing their journey on customer journey enhancements, and I think that's really gives a lot of inputs where to focus on instead of focusing on all the 1,500 journeys. A good input. I'll take one more question from the panelist from Fahad, and then we'll open for questions. Fahad, now, so we are looking from a modernization, and there are a lot of banks which are coming up as a digital-only bank. Now, the existing traditional banks, again, they also need to sustain, and they have been sustaining, and they have been doing a lot around digital. So what do you see a traditional bank should be doing for the FinTech partnership, for fostering FinTech innovation in the digital ecosystem? And what role we expect from the FinTech also to be playing around to provide a collaboration with the traditional banks
Thank you for the question. And nice to see the popularity of your summit growing. Thank you all for being here. So going back to your question, the collaboration or the support between the traditional financial institutions and the FinTechs is one that when it starts, as Rudy rightly mentioned, has to have the end in mind. And this symbiotic relationship between the two has to understand that it leverages on each other's strengths. The FinTechs come in with their set of strengths that the financial institutions can leverage on and use, while on the other side, the traditional, as you mentioned, financial institutions, because they've been in the market for so long and they've been dealing with the regulators, they understand how this journey has started and where it is at the moment. The FinTechs coming in at this time might not have that full awareness, and I'm specifically pointing towards the compliance of the regulations of things. So whatever type of product it is or service they would like to launch or work with traditional financial institutions on, it's good for them to sit on the same table and discuss such initiatives and see if it will be useful for the market. That study needs to be made. And in order for it to further strengthen that study, because the banks have been available in the market in existence for such time, data is rich with them. And having this data exchanged with the FinTechs in a secure manner, something also that the understanding would need to be put in place so that it can be used to come up with something very viable for the market, who is the thought, the end in mind. Having the regulators govern this scenario and the financial institutions understanding that is definitely the strength what the financial institutions bring to the table. And from the other side, the FinTechs bring their agility, their nimbleness, their efficiency, and because they work at a lower operating cost, hopefully, or we all assume that the product they bring out to the market would be very reasonably priced and that the financial institutions can leverage on to further enhance their profits, being the bankers. The traditional financial institutions as well should take in these FinTech, mentor them in their hubs, like what my brother Mohammed mentioned in his section. Mentoring them not only for what it is to come or what it is that is going to be cashed out, but also mentor them on what is happening in the financial market right now and that of the neighboring countries to further bring in those expertise and have it produced for the consumers here. I see that a key that will really change and speed up this rollout of products and services for the market is what the regulator will have to bring to the table in terms of open banking and in terms of allowing the tokenization and the digital signatures. Once, and the digital signature aspect of it, in the previous panel, they were discussing about the KYC and digital onboarding. So the digital signatures will really help speed up in that aspect of things as well. And there was also a mention by Ashish on the direct debit. So having that digital aspect of signatures will also make that product buy in the market in a very seamless way through the digital aspects in which we are expecting the FinTechs to further bring.
Thank you, Fahad. I think few interesting stuff, which is like a key takeaways for the fintechs in the room, and also for the banks who are building the digital-only banks. So we should see these fintechs as a complementary, bringing a lot of agility, and there is a need to coach them because they come from a tech background, and it's what a banking needs is something which needs to be coached. I think that's an important element which you brought forward. I'll open up for any questions from the audience.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Kashif from Bank Nizwa. My question is from our panelist Sadiq, because he's leading one of the leading Islamic bank here. Like, what sort of challenges you are facing with respect to this fintech collaboration and your digital journey? While like the other banks, conventional bank has the liberty, like they can connect, plug and play with any fintech by closing their eyes. Are you facing any challenges with respect to that, with respect to Sharia and anything else? Thank you.
Short answer, Kashif, no. But the situation or the issue is that the fintech really needs to solve a customer's problem. If there's no clear-cut problem that we have on ground to solve, then there's no real solutions. I've met a number of fintechs in the past year that wanted to tie up with a bank. It didn't really matter to them if it's conventional or Islamic. One of the fintechs that had passed by was Zumar, that Chetan alluded to with Umpay. They were looking for an Islamic bank that could, excuse me, that could solve their problem of jam'iyat, okay? And we were ready to do it. But because of other issues that were surrounding us, them in the sense of a proper ecosystem, and the infrastructure between us and them and the country, it didn't work out. But nevertheless, what the answer is, there's no real showstopper in Islamic banking to support any of the fintechs. In fact, what I see is the Islamic banks can play a major role in supporting fintechs and can really add value to the fintech in that space.
Thank you, Sadiq. With the mic.
Thank you very much. Ali, my question may be to Ali. Are you the one in the picture or? Okay.
So that was the question?
Yeah, that's right. Actually, my question is, sorry, you look younger, by the way, smarter. I was just curious to know, how would a big player in the market on the digital aspects like Backbase is actually dealing with the interruption coming from the fintech? We know that banks is actually now trying to, quite to either build a relationship, collaboration with them, or even work as, provide them the platform as an aggregator, for example. How do you, as a player, as a digital player or platform provider, actually deal with the fintech entrance to the market?
Sure. So to your first point, yeah, my wife was more shocked than you were. Look, Backbase is a large fintech player, but we are doing, honestly, what most banks are doing or should be doing. We have an ecosystem. We do not solve everything on our own, and we do not want to either. Backbase is an engagement banking platform, right? We support our customers on modernizing their customer journey from back to front. What we are not, for example, is a core banking player. So who do we partner with? Our friends at Finastra. We, for example, do not have direct KYC capabilities. So we partner with Onfido or Jumio or other fintech players in this space. The reality is that any large technology player cannot really operate on its own. We need to bring the ecosystem together. And what that's resulting in, which I believe is a benefit for the industry, is the creation of ecosystems and competition across the sector. whereby when we as Backbase or any of our other players in the larger technology space come to you, we come to you with an ecosystem end-to-end solution. But the good news is that given the element of platformization, which is what you see across the industry, right? We give you the capability to not just buy, but also to build. So we're very flexible and we're very open. And that is by design, that is by choice, right? The only way we see in terms of how this space is going to grow is if we bring more and more of the ecosystem together. And as leaders on the technology side, we have to be at the forefront because we are the ones preaching that message to the banks. So how can we tell banks to do it if we ourselves don't do it, right? Finally, I also believe that there, with the whole open banking element of things coming into play, this will only expand. Right? So what you will see is even right now we partner with what we would call leaders in the industry, right? But we have the capability via API to interlink with almost anybody. And that also is by design. So what you start seeing with us is localization platforms that are interlinking with the local regulation of that specific market. Recently, I was dealing with a customer in Qatar, and we had to do a lot of localization there. Bahrain, same thing. Oman, same thing. UAE, same thing. So, and you will see that grow further and further. I hope that answers your question.
So with that, Sadiq, I'll bring my tough questions to you now. So it's more on the regulator side. Since you are setting up a digital bank for Oman, and again, that's an interesting journey. So how do you see the role of a government or a regulator should be playing to foster the fintech ecosystem? And I think let's start with that. I'll just
See, there are a number of things the government and the regulator can do, which obviously they are doing here in Oman. But first and foremost is that they need to be adaptive and flexible in understanding the fintech landscape, which changes changes on a monthly basis, if not weekly basis. Today is something, a week later, or 2 weeks later, it's something else. Having said that, the other things that they need to do, for example, the regulator will have to provide a framework for the fintechs and the technology partners that is clear and understandable. Yes, we have a framework, but if it's in the same regulator's language, which is really not clear and can be interpreted in multiple different ways, that really doesn't give a proper framework to the fintechs or the banks that are going to play with it. Take, for example, the KYC framework that was released a few months back. In my own bank, five people sitting across the table, and we have 5 different interpretations. To solve this problem, the regulator really needs to take on the fintechs on board, discuss with them, run it by them, and have a clear and understandable framework that can really facilitate and give them a place to innovate. Other things that we are doing, for example, in Oman, is the innovation hub that my other colleagues alluded to was Oman's Innovation Hub, which it's a phenomenal thing, where they provide the funding and they actually push through the fintechs through its spaces, and they graduate a few every 6 months or 1 year, I'm not too sure. But the fintechs that come out of it are fantastic. They were listed by Chetan, which then they go through the regulatory sandbox, which allows them to test with a bank the problems that they are solving, how to implement the rules and regulations that the central bank has set. And keep in mind that the fintechs that are coming on board are young adults. They're not experienced such as us who know the central bank rules. You tell them that that we have to integrate into Malaa for the KYC, and we need to do a level 1 and a level 2 with these certain. Why can't we open? Let the customer open an account and let them transact. No, but we need to make sure of AML, CFT, and whatnot, and it's a complicated world for them. So we really need to make it simple. And my colleague Mohammed mentioned it as well, having enough funding for them will really, and giving them the funds will really keep them innovating.
Thanks, Sadiq. For the benefit of time, I'll just bring my last question. And I'll have a different question for the banks and different question for the fintech. As a bank, I mean, if you have to give one advice to the fintechs, what they should do to succeed as a fintech and providing value services to the banks, what is the one advice you would give as a bank to the fintech? Maybe we can start with Ashish and then. Yeah.
Glad to share the platform and mic with Backbase. Yeah. So one advice I would generally say to the fintech and to the entire ecosystem in the country is, see, fintechs will only make money when the scale is there. Okay. And to bring in the scale, I think we have to increase our horizons and to what we are looking at. And so it brings in two important critical components. One, what is the problem that we are trying to solve? See, payments is the buzzword. Every second fintech is into payments. So don't follow the lead what the next guy is doing. Try to solve a problem. Like I said, 50% of the market is still cash. Where is this cash getting used? Why can't you digitize this component? And that's where I think the fintech should be looking at the right segments. The second is increase the market horizon. Why fintechs have to operate only in Oman? The fintechs that are working in Oman, why don't they collaborate? And obviously, they have to be supported with the entire players in the ecosystem, with the regional players, because a lot of things that is happening in Qatar, in Saudi, in UAE, would happen eventually in Oman. And this can become 10 times faster if there's an international collaboration. And obviously, and that's where the real funding will automatically come in, but you have to find the right source for that funding.
To add on what you mentioned, I think it's on us and it's the bigger bodies to bring in the international expertise for the local or for the Omani fintechs to see and collaborate. And for us to put those type of platforms in place and invite them, that's definitely something that should happen to see a faster growth in this space. And an advice for the fintechs is for them to be persistent once they find the idea or identify the gap in the market. And once that gap is identified and hands have already been shook and the agreements are established, the fintechs should also understand, because they're running at a lower operating cost, to go with the deal and just say Bismillah and get into it. And it's a long-term relationship when it comes to the type of product.
Yeah. So don't follow the league from Ashish and persistence from you, Fahad. And I'll take it over to Mohammed now. Mohammed, something different. What you would like to add as advice to the fintechs?
See, whatever been said on the panel, can see there is a statement has been repeated and repeated that fintechs are here to solve problems that the bank faced. So unless you come with a solution, you will have no value. What Sadiq was saying, what Fahad and Ashish, we're keen to invest. We are keen to partnership if you're going to solve a problem. I'm sorry to say to the big companies around tables, but I prefer to deal with the companies that are cheaper and solving a problem rather than going and purchasing a software that cost me, the license cost more than $1 million. Sorry about that, Yani. But I want to do that. So to me, let's look futuristic a bit. Let's look for what's coming ahead. I always ask that question. What's happening now, it's been solved. There is a solution. Look ahead. I don't see anyone on the corporate banking space. Everyone is focusing on the payments. Corporate banking is a large segment, is a large space that you can do a lot. Starting from trade finance, working capital, to collection and cash management. Huge. Look at virtual accounts. Nobody is looking at that. Where actually Oman is driven now by virtual accounts. Everyone is looking at it. On the other side, I go back to what Ali said in his first example. Banks doesn't know their clients anymore. They just send mass emails and whoever get captured. That's due to one thing. Maybe digitalization is part, because usually when you go to a bank, you know the branch manager, you know they get to know you. Today you don't deal with the humans, you deal with digital. That creates a huge amount of data that need to be analyzes, and analytics report comes out of it, which is actually guides you what your customer want. FinTechs look at that. These are the future, especially in Oman. We don't see that. Most of the FinTechs that is being on the screen, PSPs, to crowdfunding. No more than that. So go beyond.
Thank you, Mohammed. Sadiq, over to you.
See, one of the things mentioned by the panelist was the FinTech actually needs to be solving a problem the customer has. If the FinTech is not solving a problem, they will pick up for a certain bit of time, but then I'm sure they will fall off. But to sustain the success, the growth, FinTech needs to solve a problem. That's number one, the most important. Number two is have a strong, knowledgeable, and a team around you that is that their attitude is positive. If you have 10 smart people around you and their attitude is not positive, then it's a waste. Attitude is really important, and know your customer. Know your customer so you can address them. You can satisfy their needs.
Yeah. So work with the right mindset with the partner. So that's important. So coming to the last point, Ali. Now, what do you expect to have a right collaboration from the bank side? And we'll keep it brief, just for the benefit of time. Yeah.
Sure. To Mohammed's point, Backbase is in corporate, and the team's here, so we can have a discussion. But no, to answer your question on a more serious note, I think what the bankers to my left have said very correctly so is 100% correct, right? There needs to be a problem to be solved, and it needs to be done in the right way. I think the reason why banks do not know their customer as much as they could or should is not because they don't have the data, regardless of digitization or non-digitization. It's because there is a mindset approach to proactively not attacking a customer in a specific way. And that fundamental mindset approach is something that we as FinTechs are very guilty of breaking, which is why we are considered to be the troublemakers. And in terms of that collaboration model, I think where it will work most fruitfully is when both sides of the equation, the bank and the FinTech, come together to realize, look, we can elevate the overall experience or solve this problem in a different way. Let's figure out how together, right? And there, my panelist said, and they're absolutely right, there are multiple FinTechs out there. Some are more expensive than others. But just like a bank is a business, a FinTech is also a business, right? And so we have our commercial models based on the years of R&D, research, and experience that we bring to the table, right? And I think what's critical is that we are willing to work not only with the banks, but we also want to see banks go in a completely different approach. And if that approach is more around the fact of how can we solve this issue in a different way by making the relationship work, think of it like marriage, right? Ultimately, you have to make it work. And if you make it work, it will be successful. And I think that's the mindset that we need to come together with. It's not a bank versus FinTech versus the problem. It's a bank and FinTech against the problem.
So in short, you expect all the, or accept all the asks from the banks, cost-effective, collaborative, and working in a partnership model. So I mean, that's good. That's good to hear from you. With that, I'll thank all my panelists, and it was a pleasure to have all of you here on the stage.